Hi, I'm Christy. Welcome to Weird and Witchy Shit, a place for, weird and witchy shit. Here we talk about everything from the magic of yoga, rituals, tarot, crystals, astrology, self-love, mental health, spiritual stuff, spooky things, and anything of the mystical variety. So if that sounds like the kind of shit you're into, then you're in the right place, my friend. Welcome to the coven. I love the story of Persephone. It's about light and dark and how a woman can be both of those things at the same time. And as someone who sometimes struggles with black and white thinking, this is a story that has always brought me great comfort. So Persephone was the daughter of Demeter and of Zeus. And I'm sure we already know who Zeus is and he needs no introduction. But in case you don't know who Zeus is, he is king of the gods. You know, the head honcho, the big shagger. And Demeter was the goddess of fertility, agriculture and the harvest. So a very important life-giving symbol. She was responsible for crops growing, food, plants, etc, etc. And the most important thing in the whole world to Demeter was her daughter Persephone. And they really had a bond like no other. They were so close and they loved each other very much. Persephone was basically like a more youthful version of her mother. She was beautiful, she was kind, she was at one with nature, and it said wherever she went, flowers would grow beneath her feet, baby animals would be born. It was almost as if she was just the springtime personified. And I always think of Persephone as a literal Disney princess, like that scene in Snow White where she's in the forest and she's singing and all the animals are coming around her. That's Persephone vibes all over. But one day Persephone was walking through a meadow, picking flowers, playing with the animals, just being her little Disney princess self, when off in the distance she sees a very beautiful wild flower that she's never seen before, and she felt a little entranced by this flower, so she went over a little closer to go and investigate. And it was then when Persephone got over to the flower that the ground in front of her started to tear open. Out came a huge black chariot, and before Persephone could even get her head around what the fuck was happening, she was pulled into the chariot, swooped on down into the ground, and the ground closed up after her. So just literally disappeared in a matter of moments. And no one knew what happened to Persephone, and it just kind of seemed like she'd disappeared in thin air. And when news got back to Demeter of Persephone's disappearance, she was devastated beyond belief. And it was then that Demeter swore that she would spend every second of every day searching for her lost daughter, even if that took for all of eternity. She was willing to dedicate eternity to finding Persephone. In Demeter's search for Persephone, she was assisted by the goddess Hecate, who will be spoke about on another episode. So Persephone's gone, and the days turned into weeks, turned into months, and still no sign of her. But Demeter stuck to her promise and searched the entire earth for her, day in and day out. And in fact, she was actually so focused on finding her daughter that she wasn't focused on anything else. She was basically abandoning all her godly duties, so the people on earth started to suffer greatly for this. Like I said, Demeter was very life-giving, so when she gave up giving life, no crops were growing, no animals were being born, there was no food for the animals. plants were rotten, and the earth started to grow very cold, very dark, and very lifeless. So on earth there began a great famine, and because the people were, little preoccupied with the starving and dying, they were spending a lot less time worshipping the gods, and the gods love to be worshipped, so this wasn't great. And who loves to be worshipped more than all gods love to be worshipped? Zeus. So he was like, what the fuck, guys? Like, I know you're like starving and literally dying, your family are withering away in front of your very eyes, but is that really any excuse to not worship me? And ultimately, Zeus knew that the only way for people to start worshipping him again was to be not dead. So the only way for that to happen was to get Demeter back to work. So he decided, enough is enough, I am going to step in and get Persephone back. Bear in mind that Persephone is his daughter, so should he not have been looking for her anyway? I don't know. But anyway, Zeus actually already knew what had happened to Persephone. So his brother Hades, who is the king of the underworld, came to him months before to remind him of a deal that they had previously struck up together. And that deal was that Zeus was going to let Hades marry one of his children, or one of his nieces to be. Yeah. So Zeus's daughter is Hades' niece, and that's okay because this is ancient Greece, that's allowed. Greek gods say that's okay. So Hades said that he'd fallen in love with Persephone and she was the niece that he wanted to marry. So instead of Zeus being like, okay, maybe ask her to marry you, that would be a start, take her on a date, go for a coffee, like she really likes roller skating, like maybe you could do an activity together. He was just like, you want Persephone? Okay, just take her. So, surprise, surprise, the great chariot that came out of the earth and swooped Persephone away was Hades. But because now all the mortals were dying because of Demeter's Great Depression, Zeus decided that things could not go on this way and Persephone had to be brought back to her mother. So he sent Hermes, who is messenger of the gods, down to the underworld to tell Hades, the big man says you've got to give the girl back, so give the girl back. And obviously Hades wasn't too pleased about his bride being took away from him, because he actually, for all his faults, emo king, he actually did love Persephone. Something about how she was so bright, beautiful, full of life, and basically the polar opposite from him, really made him feel feelings that he'd never felt before, and in a way made him softer and more kinder himself. And that kind of feeling that he had when he was around Persephone was just not something that he was wanting to lose. When he went to tell Persephone the news that in the morning she would return to her mother, she was happy because she had missed her mum a lot, and she had missed the sunshine a lot, and she'd missed the light in her beautiful life, but she was also kind of surprised to realise that she was really sad to be leaving the underworld. Much like how Hades had loved the light in Persephone, she had grown to love the darkness in him, and in turn embraced the darkness in herself. It was a darkness that she never even knew that she had. And as much as she loved life, she had also started to love death just as much. So Hades asked Persephone that if for their one last night together, and to show that there was no hard feelings between the pair, if she would share a couple of pomegranate seeds with him. So she agreed, and she took 6 pomegranate seeds from him and ate them. Now, I don't know if you know, but there's a little rule in the underworld that if while you're there you consume any food at all, even a single poppy seed. Poppy seed? Pomegranate seed? Have I been saying poppy seed this whole time? It was pomegranate. I don't know what I've been saying. Where am I? If you consume even a single pomegranate seed, you will be forever belonging to that world. And Hades, of course, knew this, and I like to think that Persephone also kind of knew this. So now, technically, Persephone was to stay in the underworld with our goth king Hades, but she did miss her mother and the other half of her that she just couldn't say goodbye to forever. So, like all great relationships, a compromise was made. Persephone would spend 6 months out of the year in the underworld with Hades as his queen, and the other 6 months she would spend on Mount Olympus with her mother, embracing all things light, life and vibrant. So for half the year, when Persephone and Demeter are united, the earth starts to flourish, crops grow, food is abundant, the sun is shining, and of course new life is being brought to the world. And for the other half of the year, when Persephone is down in the underworld with Hades, Demeter's grief for her daughter shows when things grow cold, crops wither and die, and the world gets dark. And it's said that that is how the cycle of the seasons came about, through Persephone embracing all parts of herself and accepting that she could be both good and bad, light and dark, soft and strong. I feel like this story is a really good representation of whatever season of life you're in right now. Things will change. Well, when you're up, you're going to come down, and when you're down, I promise you, you're going to come back up. And it really is this cycle that keeps the world going. So our yoga practice for Persephone is about embracing all sides of yourself. Maybe you're a sweet young girl skipping through the flowery meadow, and maybe you're queen of the underworld, but maybe you're both. I heard this before and I can't remember, but it's always stuck with me, and it's about using your and. So I'm soft and strong, I'm a mother and a child, I'm kind and sometimes not. So I like that. At the end of the day, you're multidimensional and you can't be put into one box because you are many things. You contain multitudes. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can get me on Instagram at Christys_Coven. That's KRISTYS_Coven. You can also find me on YouTube at Christys Coven, where I post a lot of free yoga classes and shit like that. And I'd love to have you join, because it's not a coven if it's just me. And until next time, bye!